Have you ever felt that quiet, strange moment when the world seems to pause, as if waiting for something impossible to happen? That's exactly how Alice felt one golden afternoon. The sky was a pale, perfect blue, humming with the warmth of early summer. Bees drifted lazily between flowers, and the murmur of a nearby river filled the air. Alice sat beside her sister, who was reading a book, a very dull book, in Alice's opinion. It had no pictures, no conversations, just words marching across the page like soldiers with no music to guide them. What is the use of a book? Alice thought with a sigh, without pictures or conversations. The day was lovely, but her mind was restless, that familiar restlessness of a curious heart trapped in an ordinary moment. Then something caught her eye. A white rabbit ran past her. Not so unusual, perhaps, but this one wore a little waistcoat, and from that waistcoat it pulled out of all things a pocket watch. Oh dear, oh dear, I shall be too late, the rabbit exclaimed in a rush, glancing at the watch before darting forward again. Alice blinked. Once, twice, a rabbit with a watch, she whispered, half amused, half amazed. She sprang to her feet. Wait, Sir Rabbit. But he didn't wait. He disappeared down a hole under a hedge. Without thinking, without even wondering what she was doing, Alice ran after him. She knelt beside the hole and peered inside. It seemed quite deep, but before she could stop herself, she leaned too far forward and down she went. The fall was slow, almost dreamlike. At first, Alice felt frightened, but then she realized she was floating more than falling. The walls of the tunnel were lined with shelves, maps, jars of marmalade, books, and strange boxers with faded labels. She picked up a jar marked orange marmalade but found it empty, so she carefully placed it on another shelf as she drifted by. How curious, she murmured. I must be falling very slowly. I wonder how many miles down I've gone. Perhaps I'm falling straight through the earth. Will I come out among the people who walk with their heads downward? Oh dear, will they think I'm strange? She giggled at the thought. Even as she fell, Alice's imagination refused to rest. After what felt like forever, the tunnel suddenly widened, and she landed gently on a pile of soft leaves. She stood up, brushing off her dress. Ahead stretched a long hallway lined with doors, hundreds of them all locked. At the center of the hallway stood a glass table, and on it a tiny golden key. Alice tried every single door, but none would open. Finally, she spotted a small curtain near the floor. Behind it was a little door, not more than 15 inches high. When she tried the golden key, it fit perfectly. Beyond the door was the most beautiful garden she had ever seen, fountains, bright flowers, and sparkling light. Oh, how I wish I could get in there, she cried. But she was far too big. She looked around again and noticed a small bottle on the table, labeled in neat letters, "Drink me." Alice hesitated. It's very strange to drink something without knowing what it will do, she said aloud. But the bottle didn't say poison, and curiosity tugged at her heart. She took a sip. At once, she began to shrink. Her dress billowed around her as the world grew taller. The table now towered above her like a mountain. How wonderful! She exclaimed. Now I can fit through the door. But just as she reached the door, she realized she had left the key on top of the table. "Oh, no!" Alice cried. She tried climbing the leg of the table, but it was too slippery. Tears welled in her eyes. "What a silly girl I am," she said softly. "Now I'm small and can't reach the key at all." Then she spotted another little box beneath the table. Inside it was a small cake with the words "Eat Me" beautifully written in currants. "Well," said Alice, wiping her eyes, "I might as well see what happens next." She took a bite. A tingling warmth spread through her. The floor seemed to sink beneath her feet, and everything around her grew smaller. Or was it she who was growing? "Oh, I'm getting taller," she gasped as her head bumped the ceiling. In seconds, she had grown so large that she could barely fit in the hallway. "Curiouser and curiouser," she exclaimed. "Now I'm too big again." She laughed, despite herself, because everything about this day had already stopped making sense. And that's when she heard a faint patter of little feet. The White Rabbit rushed back into the hallway, muttering, "Oh, my ears and whisk. How late it's getting." He stopped suddenly, saw Alice towering above him, dropped his fan and gloves, and scurried away. Alice picked them up, curious. "What a strange creature," she whispered. But as she fanned herself with the rabbit's fan, something odd happened again. She began shrinking once more. The walls seemed to move, the air shimmered, and Alice's vision blurred. When the world finally steadied, she was small, again so small that the door to the garden seemed just her size. She ran toward it, full of joy, but her feet slipped, and suddenly she was falling once more, only this time into a pool of her own tears. As she splashed and struggled to keep afloat, Alice laughed through her confusion. "Either this is a dream," she said, "or the most wonderful nonsense that ever happened." And with that, her adventure in Wonderland had truly begun. Thank you so much for joining me on this magical journey today. If you enjoyed this story, please give this video a like. And do you want to forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss our next adventure. See you next time!